This is Marjorie Bancroft, and I have a special question for InterpreTIPS today. InterpreTIPS, of course, is where you can ask any question that you'd like to about interpreting. Today's question comes from Thailand. She says, I have a question. What advice for improving communication would you have both for staff working with interpreters and interpreters themselves when engaging with interpreted communication with traumatized clients? This is a big one. I'm going to start by saying we'll look especially at mental health, medical, and legal interpreting. Positioning, big question. Often in the US, the interpreter might be seated slightly behind or positioned slightly behind the client. That might not feel very safe for many traumatized clients. So for a therapist or an attorney, work out in advance where the client would feel comfortable, but adopt a position, find a position that keeps you out of the middle, avoid the triangle for example, that keeps you in the background but where you can still hear the client, because often a traumatized client's voice is going to fall or grow soft. Next, consider occasionally, if you are hearing very traumatic content, switching from third person or indirect speech, or rather switching to third person. Why? If the client is saying, I saw my whole family killed and then I had to run through a field of burning corpses and so on, and you say it in first person, I saw my family killed, I had to run through that field, we know from a growing body of research that this is traumatic or can be traumatic for the interpreter. If you switch to third person, it helps put a wall between you and some of that traumatic content. So that is your choice, sort of a technique to use as needed. If the client falls silent, please learn to sit with silence. In other words, even if it's an extended period, don't rustle papers or move around or move your feet or clear your throat or cough. Just ride it out. If everybody else is silent, you just stay silent too until there's something to interpret. Now let's say it gets really rough. There are interpreters who feel like they're ready to throw up sometimes from what they hear. In that case, here's a couple of other things that you can do. For one thing, learn some basic breathing exercises. In situations like this, you want to really be breathing from your diaphragm. Short, shallow breathing from up here can actually amplify the trauma, increase the trauma that you're experiencing as an interpreter. So learn some breathing exercises and some relaxation exercises that you can actually practice while you're interpreting. This is possible. And many interpreters visualize what they hear. You really don't want to do that for traumatic situations. Many interpreters find visualizing helpful because then it helps them to be more accurate, but not for traumatic content. You might instead want to visualize a nice safe place or a beautiful place like a seashore or a mountain or a meadow. Some interpreters find that helpful. The other piece you might want to think about is grounding yourself. If it's really tough, think, okay, here I am in my chair, my feet are on the floor, the therapist's voice is very soft and gentle, I can feel a breeze coming in through the window. Anything to ground you in the here and now. Now, if you're a provider working with the interpreter and the client, you really want to remember all the things I just said and find out if you can remind the interpreter or tell the interpreter who probably hasn't been trained during a debriefing after the session. Please, please, please debrief with the interpreter. Find out how the interpreter is doing. Mention these techniques to help the interpreter, whether you're a mental health provider, a doctor or nurse, a social worker, an attorney. Debriefing after an encounter with a very traumatized client is extremely important for the interpreter. Great question. If you want more information, please go to the website of the Voice of Love. I am the volunteer executive director for the Voice of Love, and it is an organization, a nonprofit organization devoted to supporting interpreting for survivors of torture, war trauma, and sexual violence. You'll find the website right below this video. Thank you so much for the question. Take care.